It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of December 13th, 1996. Got 4 movies to look at today, so let's go ahead and jump on into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Cameron Crowe's Jerry Maguire, starring Tom Cruise.
On December 13th,
Was my imagination or didn't we arrive in a limo?
Tom Cruise is sports agent Jerry Maguire.
What can I do for you, Rod? What can I do for you?
Show me the money. Say it with me one time, Jerry. Show me the money. You can do better than that, Jerry. I want you to say it with me, then, brother. Show me the money. Louder. Show me the money. Congratulations, you're still my agent.
Jerry Maguire, rated R, opens December 13th.
So this film is actually inspired by a couple of things. One, most notably, legendary sports agent Lee Steinberg, who you may not know the name, but if you've watched like old archival footage of NBA drafts, NHL drafts, NFL drafts especially, you definitely have seen his face before. You've definitely seen him on TV, waiting with several of his the players that he's agents for in the back room before their names are eventually called. And this is basically inspired by an experience that he had with client Tim McDonald during the 1993 NFL season when free agency was just getting started. It was also inspired by a memo written at Disney by Jeffrey Katzenberg in 1991. And that's a couple things I never really knew about this movie. I knew that what this was. I mean, I've seen this movie several times. I never put those two together, and I never especially knew that Katzenberg actually wrote a memo that was actually the inspiration for this. This is actually Cameron Crowe's third film as a director after Say Anything and Singles, 2 really good movies. And this is probably the best film that he had done up to this point, and it's hard not to see why. It's a really damn good movie. It works because of the stellar cast that's in here. Tom Cruise is very good playing Jerry Maguire. This is a film that really should have given him... This probably would have been his best chance to win an Academy Award for Best Actor, and I think he should have probably won it, but that's just what the Academy Awards are. They don't want to honor people. They don't want to honor people like Tom Cruise unless it's a movie that's clearly awards bait. But I'm not going to delve into my hatred, not even hatred, but my criticisms about the Oscars on here. I've done that several times before. But Cuba Gooding Jr. got an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, and he was very good in here. He was very solid in here, playing the why am I getting confused now? Playing Rod Tidwell, the player that Jerry Maguire is the agent for, and I mean and then Cuba Gooding Jr. said, "Hey, I've won an Oscar. I can pretty much do whatever I want. So let me go and do Boat Trip, Radio, Daddy Day Camp." And he picked some really bad movies after he won the Oscar. And I like Cuba Gooding Jr. I think he's a good actor, but man, you look at the movies he did after he won an Oscar for this, and it's just like, did you really have to go down the Lou Gossett Jr. route when you could have had more than that? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm talking a lot of smack on him, but I liked him in this movie. I think he did a very good job here. Renee Zellweger is in this movie playing the love interest for Jerry Maguire, and their chemistry works very well. They have a lot of great moments together. This is a cast that also includes Kelly Preston, Jerry O'Connell, Jay Moore, Bonnie Hunt, Regina King. A really solid cast overall here, and a lot of memorable lines in here, too. Of course, everyone remembers "Show Me the Money," and you also have at the end of the movie when Tom Cruise goes to Renee Zellweger's house, and he has to win her back by saying the great things like "You complete me," and "Help me help you," and then of course Renee Zellweger going, "You had me at hello," and it's just like, this movie has its place in history, and really you can definitely see why it is. It's still a really enjoyable film. It's a film that's held up very well over the course of almost 30 years since its release. I mean, really, there's nothing more to say about this movie that hasn't already been said already. It's a fantastic film, an amazing film that still holds up after all these years. If you haven't seen Jerry Maguire, you're really doing yourself a huge disservice by not doing so. Definitely check that one out. So, that's Jerry Maguire. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next movie, and that is Tim Burton's Mars Attacks.
This is a proud day for all Americans. The Martian ambassador is going to say a few words. Come on down, Mr. Ambassador. Whoa.
That's a Martian? Gross. Oh, my God.
Yikes.
They blew up Congress.
the United States.
I want the people to know that they still have 2 out of 3 branches of the government working for them, and that ain't bad.
This could be a cultural misunderstanding.
What do you think, Marcia?
Kick the crud out of him.
Jack Nicholson as the president. What's this? Glenn Close as the first lady.
I'm not going to have that thing in my house.
People expect me to meet with them.
Well, they're not going to eat off the vampire in China.
Danny DeVito, Annette Bening.
People say they're ugly, but I think they've come to show us the way.
Pierce Brosnan.
Very curious.
Martin Short. Sarah Jessica Parker. Michael J. Fox. Rod Steiger.
Annihilate! Kill!
Jim Brown. Lucas Haas. Natalie Portman. Jack Nicholson. Marcia's landowner. They're gonna need a place to stay, just like everybody else.
Hey, you're Tom Jones, right?
And yes, Tom Jones.
Not unusual to be loved by anyone.
Mars Attacks.
Let's cut a deal. I can help you. I'm a lawyer. You want to conquer the world? You're going to need lawyers, right?
So yeah, this was Tim Burton's first major misfire as a filmmaker. I mean, everything he had done up to this point was a success financially. He had some critical misfires. It's not even really misfires. I think he had Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Beetlejuice, Batman, critically acclaimed films that were also financial hits. Batman Returns was also a decent critical hit, but it wasn't as successful, of course, as the original Batman. But still made a ton of money. And then he did, of course, Ed Wood, which was his magnum opus at this point. At this point, you really felt like he could do no wrong. And then this movie comes along, and that trailer shows a lot of promise to it. But then the movie comes out, and yeah, it's a complete mess. I mean, there's definitely some things about it that are really cool. I like the idea of it. There's a good idea here. Like, they're trying to do a campy, over-the-top 50s style sci-fi movie, but it's like they saw Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and said, we can do this on a much bigger budget and make it even more insane and more ridiculous. But they don't even do the insane and ridiculous thing. Everybody and all the people in this movie has such a big cast to it. Jack Nicholson, you see it in there. Glenn Close, Annette Bening, Pierce Brosnan, Danny DeVito, Martin Short, Sarah Jessica Parker, Michael J. Fox, Rod Steiger, Tom Jones, Natalie Portman, Jim Brown, Pam Grier, Jack Black, Sylvia Sidney, and all these people in this movie, they make them the most blandest characters ever. The jokes in this movie are not funny, they're not clever, and every single thing that happens in this movie, the whole movie is basically just these aliens killing people. That's it. There's nothing really that engaging, there's nothing really that exciting in here. It's just, there's so much potential maybe for something incredible, but it just never comes. The comedy isn't really all that funny. The writing isn't really that solid either. This was actually rewritten by Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski, who also did Ed Wood with Tim Burton, and the rewrites, but they're not credited here. The person that's only named on here is Jonathan Gems, and it definitely is. This didn't feel like it was written by that same team that gave us Ed Wood. It felt like a movie that, had so much potential going to it, but because is apparently when they brought the number in for the possible budget for this movie, they wanted something like $260 million to make this movie, and Warner Brothers basically said, we are not going to give you that type of money for that. And so they eventually cut it down to around, I think it was 60 to 80 million, but still, that's still a lot of money for this movie. And to not have any humor or moments that are legitimately funny and wasting everybody in this cast, that takes a lot of balls to say that this is a movie that is worthy of a theatrical release. And it's just like, it's just a mess of a film. And like I said, it has its moments. It has some ideas that really could have been interesting. Like, I like the designs of the aliens here. The visual effects on the aliens are actually well done. There are moments where the comedy actually does kind of work. There's little moments that work. But then again, it doesn't help when you have all these big names here, and all you do with them is just kill them off, and not even kill them off in anything really exciting or really hilarious. You just kill them off in the most random ways possible. Most of them are just getting zapped, and then that's it. And then, granted, they do try to change it up every once in a while. Like somebody gets hit by a chandelier, somebody gets their thumb cut off by one of the aliens. But other than that, though, the movie is just a mess. Like, it's a movie that I've tried for several years to try to convince myself that there is something of value in this movie. I've seen this movie several times on TV. It's been on HBO a couple of times. I've seen it on TBS every once in a while. But it just doesn't work. It just doesn't have that spark that you would expect from a Tim Burton movie. And the ending, like I said before, it's a straight-up rip-off of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, which is a film that is clearly making itself clear that it is a satire of those movies, and knows it's very cheap, it knows it's very corny and very stupid, and knows that exactly what kind of a movie it is. This movie really doesn't know what kind of a movie it wants to be. Like, it wants to be like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and it wants to be kind of something like a new generation's Doctor Strangelove, too. There's even sets in this that are very similar to Doctor Strangelove, and it's just like, it just really didn't work. It's a movie that has so much potential to it, so much promise to it, and a cast that is so much better than this. And this is really the best they could have done with this. This is a film that really, it's a mess. It's a very sloppy mess on so many levels, and I could not believe, of all the times I've tried to watch this movie and try to really get into it, there's not been one time that I've really found any magic with this movie. This is not a very good film whatsoever. It's a major disappointment, especially coming from Tim Burton, who you expect a lot more from. But yeah, this is just one of the first of the several misfires he would have later on in his career. But he would still have those couple movies here or there. In fact, the next movie he did was a good movie. We'll eventually get to that one when we get to Sleepy Hollow, but yeah, Mars Attacks is just not a very good movie. It's a major misfire on so many levels, and it's the first major misfire for a talent like Tim Burton, who has done a lot that has been good, and then he does this, and then it kind of kills it a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about that one. That's Mars Attacks. Let's try to go back to a more positive movie. We have Denzel Washington and Whitney Houston in The Preacher's Wife.
Lord, if you're really up there, I need some help. You okay?
This is the story of an angel.
My name's Dudley. I'm here in answer to your request.
My request?
For help?
A preacher. And his wife.
This is Dudley, the Reverend's new assistant. Who sent you exactly?
The top man himself.
Now that's what I call good looking.
My toilet is broken.
Let's see what I can do here.
What they needed was a miracle.
They've never had a siren.
They got him instead.
Take your wife out dancing. Can't do it. Not tonight. You go.
Henry?
Oh my.
I believe in miracles.
From director Penny Marshall.
You get out as much as I do.
Oh, less, even less. I guess I don't have to ask if you had a nice time.
We had fun. Remember what that used to be?
Denzel Washington.
Now, I've seen the way she looks at you. Really? I mean, really.
Whitney Houston.
You know you love her.
Yeah, he knows it too. That's the problem.
So what does the sheep say in this play anyway? It's good to see you laugh again.
It's nice to have a reason to.
I want you to leave. Check the angel handbook. Wait a minute. Hey, Henry! What was that? It wasn't me!
The Preacher's Wife.
So this is actually a remake of the 1947 film The Bishop's Wife, which was actually in turn based off of a 1928 novel of the same name. And for the most part, it's a pretty good movie, and it mostly works because of the cast. Denzel Washington, Whitney Houston, and Courtney B. Vance, I think, work off each other very well. You can buy into the chemistry between both Houston and Vance, as well as Houston and Washington. Like I said before, Denzel Washington usually will turn in a great performance, even in a movie that's okay for what it is, but there are some notable flaws to it. I think my biggest problem with the movie comes with of all things, the preacher himself, Courtney B. Vance's character. I like Courtney B. Vance in the movie, but you see in the trailer there that he kind of put this all on himself. Like, he's the one that called for Denzel Washington to come down and help him, and then when Denzel Washington and Whitney Houston start to have a connection, he gets jealous at him. It's just like, you kind of brought this on yourself, dude. I mean, the whole movie is supposed to be about Courtney B. Vance being a better person to his wife, Whitney Houston, and I think it does work very well here. But I could see a lot of people being kind of turned off by the trailer, because the trailer kind of makes it seem like that Courtney B. Vance is like I said, he kind of puts this whole thing on himself because he's the one that calls for this, and then when Washington and Houston get more cozy together, he's the one that gets very jealous and gets very upset with Washington. And again, kind of brought that on yourself, but it does eventually work out in the end. I think the movie does a very good job of creating a very solid story that isn't anything too groundbreaking or too spectacular, but for what it is and for what kind of a movie it's supposed to be during the holiday season, I think it does well enough to provide a very solid and nice, comfortable movie. I think the performances overall in here are very good. Whitney Houston, Denzel Washington, Courtney B. Vance are great in here. So is Gregory Hines, Jennifer Lewis, Loretta Devine. Lionel Richie has a role in here. Whitney Houston's daughter, Sissy Houston, I believe that's her daughter. Is it? No, it's not her daughter. It's her mother. I need to do more research before I do this, but that was her mother. That was her mother in that movie. Which, now that I think about it, it does kind of make sense. The cast overall here is very good, but the music overall is nicely done. It has the gospel music is very good. It's got a good score by Hans Zimmer. It's a very solid film. It's not a groundbreaking movie. It's not one that's going to shatter a whole lot of expectations. It's not even really the best movie Whitney Houston has been in up to this point, but it works well enough to really recommend it. If you're looking for a nice, comfortable, romantic comedy with some good heart to it, this is definitely one. I'd highly recommend checking it out. I think maybe it works better if you watch it during the holiday season. I have not watched this movie outside of November or December, but I think maybe it might work for another time of the year. But as far as the movie itself goes, I think it works pretty well. I recommend checking it out, especially if you like Denzel Washington performances. This is another good one for him. Like I said, Denzel Washington's probably my personal pick for the greatest actor of our time, and this movie is one of those reasons why I think he can make a movie like this work very solidly on its own, and without making the movie itself really incredible. I think it works very well to his advantage in this film. I think it works solidly. It's a very good film. I highly recommend it. So with that said, on to the last movie that we have here, and that is Laura Dern in Citizen Ruth.
Ruth, I think there's someone trying to say hello.
I'm gonna kill your fucking ass, you bitch!
Suck the shit out of my ass, you fucker!
Hey, fuck you!
No, fuck you!
Fuck you! Fuck you!
No!
This movie actually is much more timely when you really think about it, because this is a film about a poor, drug-addled, irresponsible pregnant woman who unexpectedly attracts natural attention from those involved in the abortion debate, which, of course, is still very much a heavy topic even to this very day. This is also the first movie directed by Alexander Payne. He did a short film 6 years prior to this, but this is the first full-length film he's ever done. You see Laura Dern in there. Swoosie Kurtz is also in here. Kelly Preston, Burt Reynolds, Kurtwood Smith, Mary Kay Place, the last film that Kenneth Mars starred in before his death, and Tippi Hedren. It's got a really good cast here, and it is a really good film. If you've seen Alexander Payne's other works, you can definitely tell what this movie is, and it definitely delivers on everything you kind of expect it to be. It's a very fun movie. It's very clever, and it's also very heartfelt, tackling a very topical subject of the time period that still, like I said, still very holds up today. And it showcases, and it's the beginning of a strong legacy of films by Alexander Payne. I mean, in his career, I don't think he's ever made a really bad movie. Even Downsizing, which is arguably his worst movie, it's not that it's bad or anything. It's just a good idea that just doesn't have the right execution to it. But Election, About Schmidt, Sideways, The Descendants, Nebraska, all very solid films, and this movie started all that, and it was a really good film. It works on telling a good story. The cast is great. It's a really solid film that still holds the test of time after all these years. It's a really damn good movie. I can't recommend it enough. I should say. So, yeah, I highly recommend checking it out. It's Citizen Ruth. So with that said, that wraps up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we'll take a look at the films before Christmas 1996. 8 films in particular, including Beavis and Butthead Do America, Wes Craven's Scream, One Fine Day starring Michelle Pfeiffer and George Clooney, Jack Lemmon, James Garner, and Dan Aykroyd and My Fellow Americans, Ghosts of Mississippi, Marvin's Room, The Whole Wide World, In Love and War. So a lot of movies to talk about on the next episode, and we'll definitely get into those next time around. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.